we're gonna dig deep into one guy, and that guy is Caleb Farley, cornerback from Virginia Tech. So we was thinking of someone to watch, and his name came up, and we both watched some film on him, and we have thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it kind of feels like he might be the most realistic option among guys that might be available at that point. He does have a herniated disc in his back, which I think is really the big issue here. And if that didn't exist, he's probably getting drafted a little bit higher in the first round. The thing that I think helps with that, if you do clear him medically, I like him better at the end of the first round than I would if I were picking, say, 12th. Like, I don't know that I would be in love with him with the 12th pick of the draft. But at the end of the first round, I think it'd be tremendous value. Kind of maybe be like the Ramczyk thing if it worked out, where you get a player that could be taken much higher, but you get him at the end, and it's a little bit of a steal in hindsight. But there's a huge question mark with that back issue, and back injuries it's a scary word. And other guys have had this injury; they've come back from it. Rob Gronkowski, for instance, had a back herniated disc surgery before his draft, got taken in the second round, and his career worked out pretty well for him. So you never know, but it is scary in drafting somebody with an injury who, might miss OTAs and minicamp and all that stuff. Yeah, or going into camp. It's not the greatest situation, but when you have a significant hole, and you could patch it with Patrick Robinson and Marshawn Lattimore, and you'd probably be fine for a little bit, and then hopefully this guy would be ready by the time you need him to be. Hopefully he's ready by the start of camp. That's what they're saying now, but I think you can probably assume that's the extremely optimistic outlook. Other people are mentioning. I think the number one thing for me is that I think he moves well. He's a former quarterback, came into college, transitioned to wide receiver, played cornerback. He's new to the position. He doesn't look like a player who is new to the position, though. In man coverage, he's really good. He turns his hips well. He backpedals really well when he's playing off, and can turn around and get going. He mirrors extremely well. I think he's physical. He's aggressive in his coverage, which sometimes can be a negative, but mostly it's a positive. There is a little bit of rawness, I think, in his zone when he's breaking down. Sometimes there's a little bit of hesitancy, but again, he's new to the position. So I think there's room for growth for him. And it might take him a year or two to kind of reach his full potential. It's a position where guys usually take some time, and there are exceptions with your Lattimores and other guys. I don't think he'd probably be one of those exceptions. I think he'd be a good number two with a lot of upside to him. And the other thing I liked is they primarily played quarters, and the Saints primarily play quarters. So there's a scheme fit.
So I'll start off by saying I'll start at the end of the book and then go back to the beginning. But I like him. If he's healthy, no way he makes it to the Saints, in my opinion. Right? No. He looks like an NFL cornerback, like day one. Like when one thing, he's like 6'2", 210, 205, something like that, between 205 and 210. And he's a big cornerback. He's not like Brandon Brown or that. I don't think he's in the 6'5" range, but I think he's like 6'2". So he has a prototypical size. He's not stiff for a guy who is over 6 feet, which is good because sometimes that's the case. I thought that he was best when he was playing press man. He's more of a mirror man corner than he is, he doesn't try to jam much. Right. And that's one of the first things I look at when I look at a guy who's playing press man. Okay, is he trying to get a jam on a guy, or is he just trying to mirror him? And what he did was, he tries to mirror the wide receiver. He can play, he'd be a boundary corner if, they drafted him to be the number one corner. I think he can do that, but he wouldn't have to do that here if New Orleans drafted him. I think one of the things that stood out to me about him was that he's really patient off the line of scrimmage. Like, he doesn't overreact to what the wide receiver is doing. He kind of waits for the guy to commit to his move, and then he kind of breaks in whatever direction the wide receiver is trying to go, and he, begins to play the route. And I thought I was impressed by that because, I like you, Nick. I'm like, okay, this guy played quarterback in high school. He only played cornerback for, I think, 2 years, right? And so I'm thinking, okay, well, that's a little refinement that he's showing as a football player only 2 years into that position. So to me, that was a positive. I like that about him. I think he's still figuring out how to play zone like you. I think there's some things that like I said, 2 years into his tape, you're not gonna be good at everything. I mean, guys are 10 years into their NFL career and they're not. So that's something I think he needs to work on. I think he is better in press, but I think he can play off. I think he needs a little work in off. I did see a couple of times where it's weird. So when he's and I think he has good hips, and I agree with you there. But there were times when like he would have to flip his hips and play like a deeper route, and I feel like he was not as fluid when he did that versus when he played other type of routes. And I think I saw that pop up 3 times. It made me wonder. I like, okay, that's like first time you see it, okay, it. Second time you pay more attention to it. Third time it's a trend. So that was one thing I saw about him that I kind of, was wondering about. And the last thing, and I'll pass it back to you, is I did get him see. I thought Claypool had Claypool, that was a good matchup. I was able to see with him. I think Claypool, got the best of him a few times, and that's a good NFL wide receiver who's playing good right now. And he got beat on a couple of out and ups too. So that's something that he'll need to be.
He got beat one in that game. Yeah, no, he got caught looking, and he got him. Yeah,
Miami too. Same thing happened in Miami. Oh, and by the way, he didn't play last year. He opted out last year. So this is all 2009 tape. So
yeah, that opting out, I think, was a bad decision for him. Honestly, I think he could have used the experience, and it would have helped him. I mean, it's what was right for him is his family. I think I saw that he lost his mom at some point, and then he didn't want to put his father at risk or something. So I mean, everybody has their decisions. I think that was him. I don't want to put that on him, but I believe that I read him saying that. So
and we're just talking football here, guys. Like these guys we understand COVID and all this stuff, but just football wise, you're making a point.
You could have used the experience. Yeah, he was great against Miami, though. I mean, he had multiple picks in that game.
Almost had a third.
I watched the North Carolina game. I saw 8 targets. He gave up 1 catch. I watched the Georgia Tech game. He had 5 targets, no catches. The Notre Dame game, I think he gave up 5 catches in that game. There was, the out and up was one. I thought he was competitive on a couple others. He gave up a sideline catch where he was like right there and knocking him out. In the NFL, it's not a catch. 1 foot down in college, it is a catch. So I mean, my biggest knock on him is I think he tackles horribly. I think his tackling is awful. It's for his size too. It's weird that
I
it's
almost wrote that down too, and I was like, how do I feel about it? But I know where your eyes went when you're saying that.
Yeah, I mean, he needs to improve there. I think that's a big thing for him, and it's unfortunate because I thought he saw the field really well and reacted to some stuff. There was one play where he was on a blitz and there was like a delayed route out of the backfield, and like he recognized it, broke off the blitz and dropped in the coverage. And there's plays like that, and I saw stuff in the run game where he read it really well and he gets there, and it's just his tackling was not good. So that's the Saints like cornerbacks that can tackle well. He's going to need to improve there a lot. Again, I think he will.
Out in the offseason.
He was a again a quarterback, wide receiver, just now a cornerback. So the tackling's probably very far behind everything else, and it'll catch up. But man, if they could get him, I mean,
if he's healthy, man, he's an NFL cornerback. Yeah, I think he's an NFL cornerback. I think he's a starting NFL cornerback. And when you put it in even more perspective, like he doesn't have to play the number 1 guy here, right? So he's not coming in chasing Julio's, and I guess you got Calvin Ridley on the other side. But you get the point. Like if you playing the Cardinals, you're not lining up against DeAndre Hopkins, right? You're not going against the Odell Beckhams of the world. You're going against the number 2 guy, right? Whoever that is. So that'll kind of maybe help us development too. I think that's something that'll that'll kind of increase his chance for success in the NFL. I think you said that you think he sees things well. I agree. I think I saw him, like, I don't know if you can throw a bubble screen against this guy. Like, I think I saw him blow up like 4 bubble screens in just a few games, right? It's like I think he read it so fast a couple of times that the quarterback didn't even throw it. Like, I think Cole Kmet, the tight end that went to Chicago that got drafted last year, I mean, they tried to throw a bubble to him in the Notre Dame game, and the quarterback just had to hold the ball because he might have picked it off. So I do think that he does. That's something that he does well too.
Yeah, I saw him handle some pick plays really well. With which is something that can be a problem for NFL players, just not understanding it, recognizing it, making the switch. My main point on him too is he's calm, and that's like a weird thing to say maybe, but a lot of cornerbacks panic when the ball's in the air, but he remains calm when he can't get his head around. He doesn't freak out. He reads the receiver. He gets his hands up, plays the hands. He doesn't freak out when he's trying to spot the ball. And the Saints have had cornerbacks in the past that's been big issues for them, and it gets them in trouble. He's not one of those players. And again, for someone that's new to the position, the natural ability is crazy. Like
So let me ask you a question. Would you be taking any? Would you be participating in the NewOrleans.Football voluntary off-season workouts?
Yeah, I understand why the players don't want to take part in some of that stuff. It is voluntary. Pandemic's still going on. In a perfect world, you'd like it to happen. I'm not going to judge anybody's decision what's best for them or their family.
Right.
But I do think your team is better off with the more practices you get together. Some of these teams that aren't showing up, I don't know what the Saints are doing yet, but some of the teams that aren't showing up, this is going to be the second off season in a row that their rookies from last year don't get all that time on task. And as a veteran player, I think it's probably easier to go without some of that coaching and just kind of go about things yourself because a lot of what you need to know. But these younger guys aren't getting all of that. And I do think it probably hurts them a little bit. But look, if it's not right for you, it's not right for you, and that's fine. But
you make a good point. Like, say, for example, Cesar Ruiz, if they did decide, like, hey, you know what, based on what we thought of him coming out of the draft, based on his level of play last year, i.e. his rookie year, based on what we think we have with Eric McCoy, let's move him to center because we think if he moves over there, Eric McCoy can play guard. Then we can upgrade our line that way. And without having, these off-season workouts, that's a bit harder, right? That's a bit harder. He may have to go back and play the same position, which may be somewhere they don't see him. He was a great college center and, not so good rookie NFL guard. So that's an example. Zach Bond is another guy, right? I mean, he was moving to a new position, right? Linebacker is a need. It would be nice if he stepped up because they spent the 3rd round pick on him. Again, no offseason. Adam Troutman from a small school could use more experience. Not gonna get that. So I think you make a good point. And
Bond's the big one for me. Like Bond's the one that I want to see on the field probably more than any of them. And I just don't feel like I just feel like there's a lot that he needs to learn. As someone who wants to watch the team and find out what they have, I want to see Bond on the field so I know what he can do, so I know how to talk about him. So there's some selfishness involved here as well. There's a lot of mystery still on things that we want to see. You mentioned Ruiz. Ruiz is a big one. I want to see what he can do. Obviously, the quarterbacks. I mean, I'm dying to see Jameis throw some passes and see what kind of growth he's made from a year ago. I want to know if Keith Washington is a viable option at cornerback, if he's someone who could play snaps.
Yeah.
I mean, these are just all things that I want to see, and it's going to potentially be put on hold. There will be hopefully a mini camp for the players. We'll see what that means for the media. I'm guessing that we'll probably be allowed, and we were allowed in training camp last year.
Yeah.
Hopefully with, vaccinations or whatever, people are allowed in.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're getting closer though. I mean, at least this year we're talking about the off season, and there's not a concern about like if there's a season and all that. So, I mean, it's a blessing to be frustrated about like a small part of it going away instead of being like, oh my God, like, are they going to play football games this year? What's going to happen? What's it going to look like? I think there's a chance like stadiums are full. Like there's a chance that at least significantly more full than 3,000 fans that there was last year. So there's a lot of good signs heading back to normalcy, and sooner than later, we're going to have a normal football season. We'll see. Man. It isn't going to be this year probably because a lot of teams are opting out of OTAs, but it's getting closer.
Yeah, man. I mean,
Richard Sherman, he just did a podcast recently, and he mentioned that he's been in contact with a lot of teams, and they told him basically straight up, like, we're going to wait until after the draft to do something.
Yeah.
It's interesting with him too, the dynamic there, because he's his own agent. So like,
Oh yeah,
they're telling him this stuff like straight up,
like him directly.
No one else to communicate with. Like, yeah, we like you, but we want to see if we can go younger. And I mean, he's
you know the game.
Yeah, he's been around long enough, and he's intelligent enough to
Right.
understand the business and everything. But it is interesting that, like, I was just kind of like, I heard him saying it, like, I'm just kind of picturing, like, how do you even go at that? Like,
yeah,
hey,
man,
if we can't do better than you, like, we'd like to have you on the team.
Yeah,
But,
it's like we're looking for a rookie. You know, it's funny though. I think it benefits him though, right? Because the first thing I thought about when I saw that, I was like, man, Adrian Peterson, right? When AK, they signed AK. I mean, they signed AP.
Yeah.
To be with Mark. Draft came, Sean got he got Kamara, who he obviously targeted and wanted. He's much better than they expected, and you don't have any choice but to sit the Hall of Famer, right? You can't shelf this guy who's got his own Hall of Fame talent. So I think it benefits the teams, and it also benefits the players, in certain situations. Because if you're Richard Sherman, you're going to start. You're not going to ride the bench. You're not going to be the third corner. You're not going to be the nickel corner. My guess is, I'm just thinking of his perspective. So yeah, you want to go somewhere where the spot, where they have a need there. So
it's a good point for Sherman. He doesn't end up somewhere where he's going to end up getting replaced potentially right away, or marginalized to some degree, or happened with Teddy Bridgewater. But when he signed in New York, they drafted a QB, and all of a sudden he's no longer the starter. Like, these are the situations that you probably do want to avoid. And Sherman's too old to be. He wants to go somewhere and play. Like, he doesn't want to go somewhere and have to split time and all that stuff. At this point, what's the point of going through it if you aren't going to get the playing time? So you are right. It does benefit him in some weird way, but it just is kind of like a little bit of a harsh reality that, like, well, if things don't work out, you could be the guy.
Yeah, like, if we don't get this rookie who we love, then, or if we don't get our prototype type player, which we look for at every position, then, we'll get you. His last time he was on the field, he looked good. I know that you're going I'd be fine with it though. I'd be fine with it. I think that, I'd be fine with it. At this point, like, you got to put it in perspective, right? The expectations, I guess, from my where I look at it, the expectations are not what they were last year. So, the roster is not going to be as talented. I'm just kind of admitting that, and I've subscribed to it. And, you're not going to really find much better at this point, right? Unless a rookie comes in and blows it up. What are your options? So, if he ends up being a number 2 corner, again, he's playing next to Lattimore. He's smart. He knows the scheme, and he's playing around a bunch of talent, right? So I think it'd not be ideal, but I think I think he'd be fine. He's out of his prime, but I think they figured out a way to make it work.
Yeah, I think I'd be fine with it too. It was 2 years ago. I thought he was really good 2 years ago. I didn't really see much last year. I've seen the numbers, not quite as good. But I feel like he'd succeed here. It's his former coach. I feel like it's a situation that would be set up really well for him.
Yeah.
The one question I do have is, would you be limited in some of the stuff you can do? Because, I don't. He's played in like a similar scheme so long throughout his career. Like, if you become really multiple.
Yeah.
Is he limited in any capacity? Does it change what you have to do? I mean, I guess you can disguise some of that stuff and work around it, and they would. I mean, I don't think that they're ever a team that really forces people to do what they want to do. They find a way to make the players work within this, the system work for the players instead of the players working the system. So I guess that's an artificial concern to some degree. I wouldn't even be against doing both, but he probably would be, for the reasons we stated earlier. If you drafted someone early, he's not going to come here if they even want him. I know that there's reported interest early on, but I don't see how you wouldn't be interested in him in some degree if you go through the first round of the draft and you don't get a player. I caught some heat for this the last time. People are pointing out, this cornerback got drafted here and he did well, and this cornerback. Obviously there's exceptions. Like, you can get Tom Brady in, with the 199th pick. I mean, that isn't setting the
work
standard
like
for the league.
Man.
Yeah, if you're drafting a cornerback at the end of the first round, you're open for a solid number 2 with upside. If you're going later than that, and again, there's going to be guys that work, but if you're getting a quarterback in the second round, the third round, I don't know if you feel comfortable saying, okay, well, this guy has to start right now and we're good with it. Like, no, that's not the situation you want to be in. So if they go through it, like, I don't see how they couldn't be interested in him or, some of the other veteran guys that are out there, but he seems like the most obvious one given the relationship with Richard and how he would probably fit within the system.
Yeah.